It's interview time. Ike Fesler played Carl in Eternal Words. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Very first interview. And I really found as I got to learn more about you that you have a very fascinating background. And I just wanted to open up where whatever you're comfortable with sharing, of just basically who Ike is, where you grew up, and what brought you into the acting world.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate the opportunity. Originally from a small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee, I spent 27 years in the military, in the Navy and the Air National Guard, and I retired in 2023. And what brought me to acting was the fact that I have wanted to be on a game show for as long as I can remember watching The Price is Right with my grandparents in the summertime. So I had tried to get on a game show numerous times. I've tried recently. I've just never been able to crack that code. So when I retired, I took 6 months off. And I've got another friend who retired from the military, and he's done some acting things and actually was background on a couple of Marvel movies. And I said, what do I have to lose? New experience, put myself out there. You don't know if you don't try. And put myself on some platforms. I had some headshots taken, and that's where you found me and was so gracious and cast me in this marvelous little film, Eternal Word. So this is kind of where I am. I'm a young in the acting field, but old in experience, if you will. And I'm finding that even though I'm, over 50 years old, just getting started in acting, there is still a place for me in acting
That's good.
versus starting out at 18, 19 years old, going to film school, graduating, taking that natural progress that an Oscar winning actor might take. There are a lot of roles for people like myself who are just getting started that are putting themselves out there. And I'm just having a blast doing it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's I always find that interesting in that shift from your military background and then going into acting and just going for it. It's just what it sounds like is you just went for it, and you're right, it's never too late. There is a list out there of um, I think it's mainly women, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, where they started later in life, and actually also achieved success later in life.
Yep,
So there's
yep,
something about being older, you just not always have to be younger and
that's true.
growing up with it. So,
And I had an acting coach too, and I asked this question when I first started doing this. I said, "Am I too old to get into this game? Am I wasting my time?" And they said, "No, actually, the need for people your age is growing as people live longer. And if you have someone your age, think of all the life experiences you have." So, um, outside of the role that you cast me in, I've been cast as a police detective, an FBI agent, and a military officer. And that kind of is in line with my background, positions of authority and that sort of thing. So it's been a pretty natural fit, all in all.
so two things come to mind as you talk about that. The first is being that anyone that is watching this and they are on what considered to be the older side, right, of the coin of the industry. What advice, or do you have anything positive you want to say to anyone that is still hesitant to try and go
Yep.
for it?
Just like you said, Nicole, go for it. What do you have to lose? You only live once. You only get to go do this life thing one time. And if in 5 years you don't do it and you think, well, that was a crazy idea, where are you going to be in 5 years? In 5 years, you could be on a production getting paychecks from a streaming service. You could be, have some street named after you in your small hometown because you made it to the big screen. So you absolutely have nothing to lose, everything to gain, and all kinds of experiences. And the best thing about acting for me is I've got to meet great people like you have who have become friends.
Oh, thank you so much for that. It is very much a pleasure meeting with you, working with you. And, I still put it out there that there will be many future projects together. It was very much a pleasure. So it's being that, you're thinking of, well, you were thinking, and you still are, because you did say you still want to be on a game show, and you're falling in love and you're doing the acting. What goals do you see for yourself, stepping into this?
Yeah, so my next goal will be in your next film, which we have previously discussed, and I'm excited for that. Just continuing to hone my craft. I take improv classes, I take Meisner classes. I've taken 4 different levels of commercial acting. I'm applying for things every day. I have a full-time job during the day, but I set time aside every day to go and apply for jobs on the various backstage.com or Actors Access, and I'm always auditioning. So, to give you an example, kind of what my week looks like, I'm an executive in a military advocacy organization here in Washington, D.C. I worked all week and then I flew to Florida and I was in a filming project Friday and Saturday. I flew back to Washington, D.C. Sunday morning. As soon as I got off the plane, I got in my car and I drove to Northern Maryland to audition for another role. So I'm all in, if you will. So I'm just continuing to grow and having a good time. And am I ever going to be Matthew McConaughey at that level? Probably not. But if I don't try, if I don't put myself out there, I never will be. It
Right.
only takes one person like a Nicole Williams to see me and cast in a film. You just don't know unless you try.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of people, not only am I too old, but there's just fear that
Yep,
constantly stop people, right? So I think what you just said is very important. And I hope people will take that in, what you just said. Right? You have to try. You have to
just try.
somehow get past that fear and just go for it.
Yep,
And you're doing that. That's amazing.
yep.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now that you're on film sets and you're working as an actor, is there anything that you have faced that you found a little bit challenging, that was a little surprising, and also on the flip of that, rewarding as well?
So I will give you, if I can give a quick example, my first time on set, I didn't know what I didn't know. I got cast for a horror film and I had to go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it was the first thing I'd ever done. It was in September of 2023. And I got contacted and I did a quick demo reel and I got picked up. And all this is awesome. So I get there and the Uber takes me to this warehouse in somewhere industrial park in Philadelphia. And it was such a sketchy area that the Uber driver said, "Are you sure you want me to let you out here?"
Mm,
And I said, "Well, this is the address." So I got out of the car and I go up the stairs and I'm going to keep this as family friendly as I can, my dear friend. It was a BDSM dungeon
mm,
that this filmmaker had rented out to film on an iPhone with a portable smoke machine. And I didn't know what I didn't know, right? So he said he
right.
was going to give us food and drinks. Well, there was one Domino's pizza for like 12 people and a case of water.
Oh
And
no.
it was so sketchy. I didn't know what I didn't know. There were some people there on set that had done some films before and they left. And I had traveled from Washington, D.C. all the way to Philadelphia. I said, well, I might as well stay. Well, then fast forward to a couple of other films, one that I did in Pensacola where I did background, and then the one with you, and everything was just the pendulum swung. I mean, everybody was professional and friendly and provided good food and drinks and conversation. I didn't feel like I was going to be murdered.
Right. Oh my
But
goodness.
that's kind of the pendulum. No set is the same. All sets are different. And pleasantly surprised because going into this and being a little timid, which is not something people normally use in my to describe me. Uh, I've been very surprised at how opening and welcoming everyone is, especially in a
Mm,
field like acting, directing on, from your perspective, it is so competitive and we always hear how cutthroat it is. Everyone has been so encouraging and helpful, and I've made so many friends and I've made contacts for other productions that I ended up not even have to audition for. So in that realm, that's been the most surprising and most fulfilling thing is making new friends and just being encouraged like I never thought I would be.
That's actually really great to hear. I've heard horror stories as well. We were talking about that first film. My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just like a learning curve and
Yeah.
experience to take
Yeah.
away. And honestly, I was thinking like, well, you're in the military, you're gonna be fine, but that doesn't really mean that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's I have found that to be the case. That is something that I also find as I connect with other filmmakers or even acting coaches. I had the pleasure of taking a class with an acting coach last year, and the type of environment that they try to create on set is very mindful of other people, cast and crew. So it's just great to see that it doesn't have to be, a horror story, and that you just have
Yeah.
to get through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you didn't have that experience like that again.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad that was my first experience because it's been nothing but uphill since then.
okay. Is it
Yeah.
something where you just something you looked out for that you found that you haven't come across that again, or
Maybe I've been more mindful, but Nicole, when I tell you that it was sketch, I mean, it was the definition of sketch in the encyclopedia. And it was in this really rundown warehouse. We had to walk around back. It was dimly lit. The guy was filming it on his iPhone, didn't even have a real camera. And when he provided the footage to use for a demo reel, because all actors want a demo reel, right?
Mhm.
And I was desperate to have some footage. I didn't use it. Didn't
Oh
use it.
wow.
Yeah, didn't use it. So I've seen this person advertise again on backstage.com. And I really don't know what he's trying to accomplish. I think he probably is trying to produce some kind of a horror film, but the content that he's gathering is just, it's not even, um, I don't even think it would be useful for like amateur type stuff, but that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Sure. Sure. I think it's just also good to ask questions. I think a lot of people don't realize they can ask questions. They feel
Right.
like they just need to take it, especially if you're starting out. But no
Yep.
matter what, ask questions. That's just
Yeah,
what's
you're
bringing to
right.
my
And
head.
that's a good point, Nicole, because when I was there, like I said, I was impressionable, even though I'm over, 50 and I've had a military career and I'm starting over and I'm mature. I didn't know to ask questions like, hey, is this really how it is in the acting field? Kind of thing.
Mm,
I just didn't know. And then I went to the second set in Pensacola and I'm like, oh, so this is how you're supposed to be treated.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes, and the fact that you should again just mention how you live like around the DC area, Washington DC
Mhm.
area, and it's
Yep.
amazing that you are traveling, to these opportunities as well. So you definitely are all in because you
Yep.
traveled to New
Uh,
Jersey
Yep,
for
traveled to
this
New
film.
Jersey. It was kind of like I took a couple of trains to get your location. And then since I've seen you, I traveled to Chicago. I flew in the morning. I drove to the
Mm.
set and I flew back that night. So
Wow.
because you just don't know the opportunity you're missing out on. If you want to do this, you just got to make it happen. Just do it. Just make it happen.
Just do it. That is the phrase right now,
Yeah,
catchphrase.
yeah,
Just do it. And the thing is, it's
yeah,
always something you can learn from and take away from. Like you said, you're just building friendships. You're building those
yeah,
connections,
yeah.
and so there's just really no loss with that.
Yeah. The
Once
only hit is to my pocketbook, and luckily I have my military pension. I have a good job, so I can
right.
afford to do some of those things. But I consider it an investment in myself. If you know,
Mm-hmm.
there are very few people that came into the acting field and got $1 million payday right off the bat. I mean, there's just very few. You hear the stories about people that are, struggling actors. I just finished the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, which I highly recommend if you haven't listened to. And it talks about him going to college and he found himself wanting to be an actor. And he just started doing it. It wasn't his life goal or anything. And he filled a niche at the right time. And look at him now. And he didn't make a lot of money on the first films that he made. I think Brad Pitt, when he first went to California, I may be speaking wrong, but I think he like flipped signs for a fried chicken place or something.
That sounds
So
familiar. Yeah.
everyone's got to start somewhere
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're able to, you know,
if you can afford to. Yeah,
go forward
absolutely.
to go to do it. But
Yeah,
yeah, just like put yourself out there is the number one thing. But yeah,
yeah.
as I mentioned, you came to New Jersey to film
Hmm.
Eternal Words, and for for us, it was amazing to have you be part of the cast. You fit right in. It's always something is you never know how everyone's going to congeal, how everything's going
Yeah.
to work out. You have different people, different backgrounds and personalities, but it seemed to go and really work very well. So I was wondering if you could share your experience of working on Eternal Words that we
Yes.
have here. What is
Yes.
it that you liked about playing this character, Carl?
I enjoyed playing the empathetic figure, the grieving spouse, if you will, because I'm so often cast as a police officer or a military person, and this gives me a different range. Whereas in acting, you have a lot of actors that they make a living off being typecast. Look at every actor in an Adam Sandler movie. Those are the only movies those guys act in because they're typecasted for those type of roles. And so this was to expand my brand, if you will. But then also it helped me learn how to be a different kind of actor instead of being that authority figure knocking on the door, asking for identification or pulling someone over or investigating a crime scene. And then additionally, I felt like it was a family affair because at the filming for Eternal Words, we're in this very small bookstore in a small town in New Jersey, the name of the town that I won't even attempt to pronounce. And your mom and dad were there helping out, and Tracy, my co-star, she was wonderful. And then the makeup, I mean, everyone was just so wonderful, and it was just a cohesive, everybody had the same goal, and everybody got along just splendidly, I thought.
Yes, I agree. So that is something that, I always aim for. I put out there and I try to bring people like that together because you already touched on it. It needs to be an environment where people can not only have a good time, but also grow. I want you to leave that you feel that you were able to get something positive from the experience. It's not just something of where it's like another gig. So I do take that personally. So I'm glad that was experience that you were able to have. Um,
Yeah.
it's just really not impossible. As we're going back to what we
It's
discussed
not
before,
impossible.
it's not
And
impossible. It can happen.
no. And also what made it such a wonderful experience was your passion, and everyone around you had the same passion about the project you did. And that just shows how much you care about this project and the people believe in you so much. So that
Oh,
was
thank
super
you.
awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention, yeah, so this was shot in, so the name of the town is Manasquan. There's a lot of M's around in this
Yeah,
area
yeah.
for people that are in this part of Central Jersey. And it was filmed at Booktown in Manasquan, New Jersey. And the owner of Booktown was also very generous, and he also had a film background as well. So it was just amazing how that all come together. We have what are the odds that we found someone that has studied theater? So it's
Yeah,
just bringing everyone together.
yeah.
Um, but as far as the set being that it was something, as you mentioned, different for you to play, did you find your way of preparing and going into this role was different from your other roles?
I think it was similar. I took the script that you provided and I would go through it numerous times a day. During my long train ride, I was reading it over and over and over again. And then also trying to understand where I needed to have inflection points to. Do I act more sympathetic here? Do I act more concerned here? Do I have pauses here? That sort of thing. So I think my preparation was the same. It was just a different script and a different character.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there was one of the things that so we did have our first public premiere in Belmar, New Jersey, with Intentions, and Tracy was able to be there. She does live close enough by. Everyone else, not so much.
Yeah, yeah,
And one of the questions that we had gotten asked there was also her preparation, and Tracy had mentioned how she had asked specifically her character has an illness, and she wanted to know exactly what it was, and I said no. I
yeah,
told her
yeah,
straight
yeah.
no. And what it's just a method I have where I am trusting in you guys as actors, and you guys are creatives to really input yourselves in the character and just really work with that, and just find that voice. So for you with Carl, in finding that voice, were you able to depict that from your own personal life, as a lot of actors were usually do, or did you just come up with like a story in your head? How did you? What was your process?
It's probably a little bit of both. So, within the last 2 years, my natural father passed away. We didn't have a great relationship. However, I mean, it's your father, right?
Hmm.
So you rely and you go back to those feelings of emotions. And, also my very best friend in the world, died 30 years ago after serving in the military, came home and died in a car accident. So going
Wow.
back to those life events, and I hear all the time that actors do that to prepare for a film. If they have to cry on set, they think of a traumatic time in their life, and it regurgitates those emotions, and then at some point you're back in that moment.
Hmm.
So that's similar to how I tried to get into the role for this, for Tracy. And also, my girlfriend recently, within the last year and a half, um, within 2 years, had been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and we went through that process. They caught it soon enough, and she's now in remission. But she commented after watching the film when you provided it to us, she said, "That's exactly how you cared for me when I was sick."
Oh,
She said
wow.
she offered that. I didn't even ask, and she offered that. She's like, "That's exactly how you were when I
Oh,
was sick." Yep,
well, first of all, I'm glad that they caught it early. And second,
yep,
even
yep,
with all this with tragedy, what a compliment really to you, because you were able to really capture that life
yep,
essence, right? So,
yep.
wow, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's
Oh,
very
my pleasure.
personal.
I'm
Um,
almost choking up right now. Don't make me cry. This isn't supposed to be a crying interview.
it's whatever it needs to be interview. So, but no, that's just amazing, and that I've heard. I'm not going to say that I've taken that many acting classes, and of course I've read about that of just how to get yourself in that position, and I'm more than happy to provide what is needed to help you guys. But this is what I mean. What you just showcased and was talking about is just exactly what I'm talking about, where I'm trusting in the actors to act. It shouldn't be where me in this film project, where as a director, this is just my personal opinion. It doesn't have to be for everyone. And again, I know there's quite a few directors that are on the same path and feel the same way. But I should allow you as the actor to create and
Yep.
step
And,
into it.
and that's, going back to the beginning of the interview, that's where life experiences and me being the age I am. I
Mhm.
had an acting coach tell me that was an absolute benefit to me becoming an actor at this age, because I've lived this life of experiences that I can relate to when it comes to certain roles.
Absolutely. So, is there a role that you would love to play, being in your early stages of your career? Is there one that you would love to
Mhm.
play?
Maybe a retired Batman.
What
I mean, we
would that look
you
like?
well, I'm just saying we've never been seen in the same place at the same time, so it is
Okay.
entirely possible.
And you're wearing
Yeah.
black today. So you
I
really
am
trying to
what,
tell us.
yes, see, my backdrop is black. I have Batman socks. I'm all
Nice.
in. I'm all,
Retired Batman. I'm gonna have to think on that one. That is very interesting. I don't know. That could be nice. Maybe right now I was picturing as a comedy right now in my head.
it'd be
What does
pretty
he?
campy, I think. It'd be pretty campy.
Yeah. Okay, that is one. Just keep putting that out there. That's your goal. I'm sure someone will come along and want to write that if it's before maybe even I do and say, "Hey, I guess what?"
Yeah, a campy bald Batman. I don't know if that's coming to a theater anytime soon, but it's a novel idea.
It is. There's something there, and just roll with it. So
Yeah.
I like that. So we're pretty much towards the end of the interview,
Hmm.
and again, Eternal Words, the film that you're in. I like to say the New Jersey Films 82 is more of a hub. It's not a production company per se. It's just where I like to bring people together to be able to allow a form of community to create a film. It could be from different experiences where you're, again, starting off in your career. Um, it could be someone that's more experienced and just bring everyone together like we did for on this film set. And, with this hub, I strive to show kindness that can prevail no matter what people think. It's whatever, people come together, what they put out there. Um, and I feel that, when you have people like you that come in and help, or I should say, when you have people like you that come in, you help to make that achievable. So I just want to say thank you so much for being part of this project and being one of the realistic examples of what this hub is and what I achieve for it to be. It's very much a pleasure. So I just wanted to make sure I say that.
Well, Nicole, thank you for the very kind words. And I want to thank you as well for casting me and having your faith in me, a young actor, but older in age, and bringing me together. And I think we've become friends and we've discussed other projects since
Absolutely.
this one. And I'm super
Yes.
excited.
Can't
And
wait for that one.
I can't wait for my shout out when you accept the Oscar for Best Film. So,
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that was so funny. My cousin was saying he was watching out for me at the Oscars when it was what was that, February? And I was like, not yet. But thank you for
yeah,
that. So I
I've
love it.
had, yeah, so I have an Instagram page and all of that. And my family and friends know that I'm doing some of this acting. They're like, "So is it on Netflix or CBS?" I'm like, "Well, not just yet. Maybe
Right.
one day, but not just yet.
Not just yet. It will be. It will be. Keep
But
saying
maybe
it
one
like
day."
that.
Yeah.
So to finish out this interview, as I had mentioned to you, I sent you an email. I think what I like to do is like to pay homage to
Mm.
James Lipton. Have you ever watched Inside the Actors Studio?
It's been a minute since I have.
Okay. Yeah, so he passed away a couple of years ago. I don't know if someone else took it over or if they just ended it. I haven't really seen it, but I used to watch it all the time. And he would ask the question, if heaven is real, what would you like God to say at the pearly gates?
So I do believe heaven is real because I was raised in church and I plan to be at the pearly gates. And when I get to the
Mm,
pearly gates, I hopefully God will say, "Job well done."
yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Beautiful. And last question. So, with the interviews, the other thing I mentioned is once I interview someone, they will carry on a question for the next person that I'll interview. Being that you're the first person, I actually posted the question on social media, which was a lot of fun. I did get quite a few responses, but the one I did
Okay.
choose for the question to ask you, I apologize if I don't say this name correctly, but I think it's Mikhail Goldman.
Okay.
And
Okay.
his question is, what's the most important quality that makes a good story?
The most important quality that makes a good story believable.
Hmm. Yes. Yes, that is perfect right there. I 100% agree with that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Ike, for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to have you as my first interview. I hope
Mhm.
it was good for you.
It was wonderful.
Okay, great. So I do appreciate it. And, just put out there that there will be notifications of where people will be able to get to see Eternal Words starring Ike Fesler, Tracy Howard. And, thank you once again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.